Hello, everybody. This is Genkai, and Genkai is a really crazy character that I think is quite competitive, actually. Has a lot of good matchups into a lot of the top stuff, because she does things a little differently. She does damage reduction instead of blocking. She can still block, there's nothing wrong with that, but because she's doing damage reduction for the most part, she has a really cool kind of defensive plan that a lot of decks are not prepared for, especially string decks. The other thing is that her offense is really good, so if anyone disrespects her offense, she can easily just kill someone on the backswing. And that's what I think makes this character so great. She's really good at the offensive part, but also has a very interesting defensive plan that works really well. Now, just like Rodan, Genkai wants high block mods. And so we're running a bunch of high block mod stuff like Invincible Body, Supersonic Flight, Floating Around Our Babies, and some 3 block mods as well. The other thing that Genkai does well, in addition to discarding these high block mods for damage and damage reduction, is she checks the top card of her deck, kind of like Rodan, and if it's an attack, you just draw it, and that means that it's more likely that Foundation will be on top of your deck when you play your next attack. So she really snowballs fast because of this, because you can remove your bad checks from the top of your deck and draw into your really strong attacks. Now, there's something that should be said for people unfamiliar with this archetype. The synergy with Award the Victor is not what you may think it is at first blush. The reason why is because Award the Victor is a response after an attack deals damage, and Genkai's is an enhance that creates a floating effect, I think. This is the terminology for that. So the floating effect fires first, so you will check the top card of your deck and then put the attack back on top of your deck. But what makes Award the Victor so strong in this deck is the fact that we can use something like the final test to form draw the attack we put on top because our character discards cards. So it's still a really strong synergy. You can also use your Otogi expertise to form draw a card after you stack the deck with Award the Victor after you hit. And because we want to hit so badly, we have Genkai that has a trigger when we deal damage, and we have Award the Victor that has a trigger when we deal damage. Genkai does really well when she's running a lot of throws, because throws are going to hit basically no matter what, unless your opponent has some piece of throw hate or something. So we are running a core of throws. Genkai Spirit Shotgun is a throw because our first enhance can make it a throw, and the really nice thing about Spirit Shotgun is we can look at the top 2 cards of our deck, put an attack on top, use Genkai, and then draw into that attack. The other throw we're running is Binding Armbar, which is just in here for the Deadlock enhance. I basically never use the combo enhance because it's too hard to, but the Deadlock enhance is crazy. It just becomes a cracked Vast Hybrid Chimera Kraken, where we commit and freeze their 2 best foundations in Deadlock that can be the throw hate that your opponent has built. So Binding Armbar is nuts for that reason. You could also, if you have it, consider running Invincible Clasp. That's another card that goes really well in this slot because it's better early. You pay some life to get it to 6 damage, and then you can spend momentum to cancel abilities that your opponent's playing. So that's essentially the throws. Now, the other part of our attack lineup, Knee Smash is a little interesting because it's such a low speed move. Your opponent can block it easily, but the reason we're running Knee Smash is because of the synergy with these 3 diff foundations. With Genkai, you can discard them from your hand, guaranteeing they're on the top of your discard pile, and then build them in. So it's really consistent at building them in. Another thing is between Floating Around My Babies and What is a Symbol, we actually have really good control over the top of our deck, not to mention full-on attack mode, which can destroy a foundation that's face down. Like, let's say a face down Award the Victor, we can actually destroy the full attack mode, then build in with Knee Smash. So there's a lot of ways to control the top card of our discard pile between discarding it from our hand and what else. So for that reason, this is basically just copies 4 and 5 of Award the Victor. But it can also be a nice combo with Supersonic Flight of, yeah, you destroy Supersonic Flight, build it back in, destroy it again, remove it for, something. So Knee Smash is really cool for that reason. 4 absorbed energy Spirit Strike because this card is nuts in Genkai, especially since we're most of the time not blocking and taking 1 damage or 2 damage on a lot of their moves. That gives them a momentum that we can then steal with absorbed energy Spirit Strike. This is also extremely good into Amajiki and all those other characters where we can force them to discard a momentum and then get a ton of damage for that discarded momentum. It really punishes those decks. Not to mention the block trick, where if we do want to block something, we can block with this and flip that attack and then get a momentum. Now that's really important because one of the main ways we kill our opponent is with Double Spirit Blast. This card is so nuts in Genkai because of the fact that just having this double echo that gives all your moves +1 speed essentially every time you play it actually means that we can force our moves to start hitting and then start snowballing really fast. So this is how you can really punish somebody who, even if they have a lot of defense, you can first build up some momentum, and then this is like a really nice payout for that momentum that you're getting through your throws. It actually is like a great momentum outlet. Our other momentum outlet is Hacker Extraordinaire, discard a momentum to draw a card and flip a rival asset. Now that I've covered everything except for a Big Fist Bash, so Big Fist Bash is another card that I really like in this deck because of the fact that it synergizes so well with our mid attacks, such as Genkai Spirit Shotgun and Double Spirit Blast, if we don't echo it, or even True 100% Unleashed. So there's some really cool things you can do with Big Fist Bash. And that brings me to Cute Host Coda, which does count as in your card pool for Big Fist Bash, but Cute Host Coda is what allows us to be offensive and not get punished for it. So the problem with Genkai in many Genkai lists is that in order to pump the damage on your moves, you have to be discarding from your hand, and then you can't really defend on your opponent's turn because you discard down to 0 cards, and then maybe you build some, so then you have no cards to discard for Genkai's effect. This basically guarantees that you have 3 fresh ones to discard whenever your opponent starts their attack turn, whether that's blocking or discarding with Genkai's effect for damage reduction. So now on to the foundations. Floating is nuts in this character because it's a 4-block mod. Your finished is nuts in this character because we control the top of our discard piles so well that this is live very often as a flip to draw 1, which is very, very, very good on a 0 diff. Not to mention an insane Deadlock Enhance that basically commits a rival foundation on their turn, and then on your turn you get to commit another one. So it's just an insane piece for getting through Deadlock. Full-on attack mode is crazy with throws because it's a damage on top of the damage they take from the throw. So even if they half block, they're still burning for 1 no matter what, and then you gain a health. Chivalrous is just there as another way to draw cards, but also as a way to prevent target destruction and target flip and keep our other foundations safe. Glamour is an interesting one. Now, I like this one a lot on defense because you can commit it to draw a card, and then you take your damage, and then you have another one to discard for their next attack to damage reduce them even further. So I think Glamour is sneakily pretty good here. There's also a neat trick where you discard a momentum to add it to your hand and then discard it for -3 damage. So this is just another way to guarantee that on defense we're damage reducing everything. Final Test is crazy because it's a form way to draw, so this is what enables our Award the Victor combo. Challenging the Fakes is really nice in this deck because Genkai has this text on her enhance, minimum 1. So getting that last -1 damage is actually super important, and then because you're not blocking with this character most of the time, you can actually make your rival's next check to plane attack -2, so you basically get to fighting for control them for free, or it's kind of like Keiko's Aid. It's also a 4-block mod, which works very well in a character that's not blocking, so we can give something -4 damage. Hacker Extraordinaire is great. What is a symbol is nuts in this character. Again, because we have that minimum 1 text, this just helps us get down to 0 or -1 damage, which is really helpful, especially since sometimes you don't even want to be taking 1 damage. So what is a symbol covers us that way and also synergizes so well with our discard. We can remove a supersonic flight from anywhere in our discard pile to draw a card, so this also becomes a draw card. It makes our attacks even bigger, it pumps our throw moves even further, so both on defense and offense, this is a crazy good card. Emerald Yusuke is another form of card pool clear. I think this card is really crazy, especially with all our spirit moves. Being able to put it into our momentum or the top of our deck is really helpful because sometimes you do want it on top of your deck, so you can draw it with Genkai if your opponent isn't blocking anymore, and sometimes you just want to put it in your momentum so that you can pay for the Echo cost on double Spirit Blast and do that on no progressive. And so it's really nice as a card. Now, it is a 4 mid block, which is very good as well, but I'm only running it as a 2 of because I felt that it's a little bit redundant if you have more than that. So that's the only reason it's a 2 of. It's a crazy card, though. You usually want to see it. You just, multiples is less useful. Yuritogi Expertise, just another way to form draw repeatedly. And then we have our Invincible Body. Now, this card is actually nuts because sometimes our opponent is going to play a big move that has too much damage to damage reduce. Like, even if we give it -6 damage with Genkais and a what is a symbol, it's still too big. And there, cards like that exist. And that's where Invincible Body comes in because we can just reset its damage to 0 and we still don't have to block. So, just an amazing card in our stage and kind of covers us from those huge moves that would normally be Genkai's weakness. Now, the other way we can handle that is just by blocking, so we've got multiple ways to handle those big moves. And then finally, Supersonic Flight, which is just insane because it lets us draw a card when it's removed. And we have so many ways to remove our foundations from our discard, whether that be what is a symbol or floating around my babies. We can discard it for +4 damage to guarantee it's on top of the discard for floating, so that's really cool. Just overall, a great card. Now, for our side deck, Evade and Copy is just really good in this meta. Strength and Beauty is a funny one that's kind of good against stuff that leaves the card pool. This was sneakily pretty good against younger Toguro back in that format, and it's going to be pretty good against Mikasa and some of the AOT characters coming out. Heat Tolerance is in the sideboard for some reason. It probably is redundant with what is a symbol, but it's there. Split Body Control is just nice if your opponent has important foundations. Airy Smiles is nice for when your opponent is playing certain decks that really string out. Top Pro Heroes is pretty cool. Now, actually, funny story, the reason Top Pro Heroes is in the sideboard is because of our worst matchup of all time, Bakugo 4. Because Bakugo 4, basically, whenever it gets a damage penalty to a Fury attack, they get like 2 damage or 3 damage, I forget. But anyway, it's like a crazy character that just negates our character. So being able to remove Fury from their attack is actually kind of helpful because it makes our character live again. So that's the only reason it's in the sideboard. I think if you're against Bakugo 4, you just side into Rodan anyway. So maybe this could be cut, but that's why it's there. And then Rodan is just there as our 7-hander that we can side into when things aren't going well with Genkai, because the deck has a lot of 4 blocks anyway. So Rodan just makes a lot of sense. You don't have the... It's harder to discard cards with Rodan, I guess. I guess you can Big Fist Bash. But yeah, so that's the only issue with siding into Rodan, but I guess you can replace your final tests with like evading copies or something. So it's not the end of the world. Anyway, that's the list. In terms of the stats, we are a little bit of a thicker deck, but we are removing a lot of our cards. So I think that makes up for it a little bit. 62% foundations. We are running 4 assets or actions, so it is what it is there. Pretty even distribution. High on 3 diffs, but I think Genkai can kind of get away with that because of the fact that even if we don't build our 3 diffs, because they're 4 block mods for Invincible Body and Supersonic Flight, like holding them still feels really good. When we hold our 3 diff foundations and discard them for -4 damage, it's still great. So I think you can get away with this high 3 diff count, and then our block zones don't matter because most of the time we're just discarding a card for -4 damage or whatever. Lots of mids, but we are a Big Fist Bash deck, so it is what it is. And then that is the list. So yeah, I think this is a really fun deck. It's also very, very strong. I think you'll be surprised by how strong it can be, and You get to do a lot of really cool things, especially with Award the Victor looping and just abuse. And then when you're doing your attack strings and you're giving everything massive damage and they're all throws, and then you're looking at the top of your deck and you're drawing more attacks that you then play, and then you clear your card pool with Award the Victor and Old Yusuke, you really feel very powerful. This is a really sick deck that, yeah, is very, very strong. So that's about all I have. So thanks for watching and see you next time.